The third one, my personal favorite, is K.R. Sridhar. Does anybody recognize K.R.? He's a pretty famous guy, was once upon a time a rocket scientist at NASA. And then he founded a company called Bloom Energy. Does anybody know Bloom Energy? Okay, I see a couple nods in the room. Who can tell us what Bloom Energy does, the company, what they do? I know, I caught you mid-bite, huh?
Natural gas, electricity.
Yes, clean energy, fuel cells. They make boxes that are, small and compact, like one that size could probably power, a lot of this campus, right, with Cisco. And so to start that business, he had to actually cherry pick the best scientists from Dow and from some of these big companies around the world. And he got them into his company, and he only had one rule. His rule was no prima donnas. No one person stands in the way of the collective intelligence. And some of you manage technical teams, and you know that there could be a lot of ego sometimes. Very smart people, and he kept that rule in place. No prima donnas. No one person stands in the way of the collective intelligence of the group. And so he created an environment that his scientists, they describe it this way. It's an environment where we feel tons of pressure, but very little stress. Ever thought about the difference between pressure and stress? I'd like to hear your thoughts about that. What's the difference? Shout it out, brother.
It is useful. Pressure is useful, it's not stressful. A lot of pressure, but it's not useful.
Okay. So pressure is useful. You're saying it's productive. Stress is not.
Yeah, pressure is useful.
Okay. Okay, good. Other thoughts about distinguishing the difference between pressure and stress?
I sort of see some sense of downside with stress. There's this idea that if something doesn't happen, like personally, something bad's going to happen. Right? So you may want to do something, and the pressure is like, okay, you're pressured, but you want to get something done. Whereas stress is like, I'm worried. Like there's a concern.
And I love the way you hunched your body up when you said that, because it does have physiological effects, doesn't it? Right? The stress. How many of you have been under times of high pressure? Okay. Should be every hand in this room going up, and high stress. Sometimes you can overlap a little bit on those two. But what's the difference, really? I'd like to illustrate that with a story that K.R. Sridhar was really big on. It's the William Tell story. Has anybody heard that William Tell story? You know what it's about? Who can recount that to the class? The apple. Shooting the apple off whose head? His son's head. Yeah, he was imprisoned by the Austrian Empire. He was Swiss. And his ticket out of jail was, you get to shoot this apple off the head of your son across the courtyard. Okay. So it was not a trivial challenge. And he had to do that to get out of prison.